Thank you,
Seun.
Seun.
Well, most glaring to me was the lack of COVID-19 protocols there.
I actually thought, and some schools of thought have also had it, that this would have been an opportunity to adjust our laws where need be, and especially for elections like this, use it as a test run on electronic voting or virtual voting. So far, we've done virtual schooling. My friend just told of her daughter that was promoted to the next class, virtual school, exams, and all of that. So why couldn't we have used the same process? Just so that people, or maybe they thought that bringing everybody for election, you tell them social distancing, they would actually listen. I mean...
Well, obviously, they didn't listen.
I don't know.
That was very clear.
So what, at the end of the day,
and
what should be done? I mean, as a civil defense official, they said, we can't force it.
Are you asking me that question? I don't have an answer because Mr. Okoye last night assured us that he was very emphatic about social distancing.
And then
I mean, there were posters. No mask, no vote.
But now, okay,
it was clear.
So Jessica reported in her own polling unit where people came without face masks. And then some other people came there and distributed face masks to them. They're all wearing, I'm sure, is it everybody that got a face mask? That we didn't get to see a lot of the shots around her, but the ones we saw, it wasn't everybody that was wearing a face mask, from what I see, unless my glasses blinded me. I didn't see everybody wearing a face mask. That's one. Number two is the fact that even though they're wearing the face mask, there's no social distance. I mean, I don't...
Well, there we go again with Nigerians who don't believe that COVID-19 is real, or who believe that COVID-19 is an Oyinbo disease, or COVID-19 is a disease of the rich. Disease is no respecter of persons.
Alera, I don't know. If we don't do something about this, what do we do? I tend to be asking you, what do we do?
I wish that we could get INEC to talk to us now about what they're going to do about this.
I'm hoping Seun is also monitoring us here so that he'll go and look for the INEC officials. They say, what do we do about this?
Statement about this.
I don't know. Because at the end of the day, would there be tests to know how many people were infected in that place? Can they even check to know what the situation is? Meanwhile, while we're looking at Edo, the conversation we had earlier about the tax is raising a lot of dust. So let me just read this one. Professor Enakina says, I have been paying tax in the UK for over 2 decades. It's torturous to pay tax anywhere. Income tax below £50,000 annually is 21%. And above £50,000 is 40%, excluding the national insurance, which is mandatory for everyone. Nigerians will develop enthusiasm to pay tax if government is sincere. So he's still back to the
buy-in of the people, issue of trust all over again.
Trust and all of that. Trust. But we will take a moment and we'll come back to look at living in a pandemic. This matter of the elections, for instance, it was as if it was planned and then we're seeing this. So we have some scientists in the studio here in Lagos, Abuja, and one joins us from across the country to explain to us what should be going forward. We're back shortly. Don't go away. Welcome back. On the Edo election, Oluwaseun Raji says the rowdiness at that Apapava area, all sorts of manipulations could easily take place. It gives room for easy inducement of voters. I think Nigeria should restructure the polling station. It is way too crowded. Anybody says, I'm sure people are not sure of their polling units. The state in general is not following the guidelines.
And look at that voter who said he wasn't allowed to vote with the same voter's card he's been using for the past how many years?
They said his name is not in that place. So I wonder how his name that has been, if indeed he's been voting in that location for 12 years now, he goes on. That means 12 cycles of elections he's used in that place, and then he goes there today, his name is not there. So, INEC.
Wow. Moving on. Amidst the declining confirmed cases of coronavirus, the government continues to open up various sectors of the economy. How prepared are we to live with the virus? in some countries opened up their economy, opened up schools and all that, and found that they had to hurriedly shut them down again. So are we learning from those countries? These are questions we're going to ask those who should know. And one of them is with us in Lagos, Dr. Olushola Shokefon, who is a geneticist. Good morning.
Morning, Nigeria.
We have from our Abuja studios, from our Abuja studio, Abdulsalami Nasidi, who is the Provost, College of Health Sciences, University of Africa, Bayelsa. Good morning, and thank you for joining us. And via Skype, we have Dr. Aniekeme Uwa, an epidemiologist. Good morning. Now, let me start with you, Dr. Lushola. You watched with us those videos of the Edo elections. Yeah, and you heard us complaining about total disregard for the COVID-19 protocols, even though INEC had given their word and were very emphatic that those were going to be in place for those elections. And in the middle of all this, we're opening up the economy even further. What are your thoughts? What are our chances of surviving this virus with all that you see?
Well, thank you very much for having me. I have fears. I have fears because we have seemingly refused to learn from other countries. In Germany, in the US, in Italy and all that. Israel and all that, you know. Due to the summer break, people went to the beaches, they went wild and all that. And the aftermath is that there has been a second wave and a rise in the numbers that they currently have. I have fears that we are not very prepared as a nation. And that is, shown in the election that had a lot of time to prepare for it. Social distancing, the wearing of masks, the use of sanitizers and all that. You found that most of the voters came barefaced and they were jam-packed without giving space. So I have fears that we may be toiling with some very dangerous situation if we are not careful. And we have just refused to learn from other countries.
Professor Saidi, this thing about reopening up the environment, opening up the economy, opening up schools, opening up the worship centers, there are those who believe that by opening up these things so speedily, there's this sense that's being put out there that the pandemic is done with. We have overcome the pandemic, we're victorious, and so everybody go about your life. Is that what it is being put out there? Is that a sense that you have as well?
It's, as rightly said by the previous speaker, it's rather unfortunate that Nigerians, are beginning to, believe in COVID and run away from all the recommended protocols to keep themselves safe. And some of it is actually not due to their faults alone, but the risk communication that was handled. I think this is the weakest point of our response. Maybe we didn't communicate to Nigerians properly as for them to perceive the danger. And to worsen things is the pronouncement recently also by the government and the government officials that, we are flattening the curve and therefore, we might be on top of the pandemic. And this will also make Nigerians also now believe further that, we are actually getting out of it. So don't worry, don't wear your mask, don't wash your hands and so on. So, but this is very dangerous and explosive because the virus is very elusive, very terrible virus, more dangerous than we are thinking.
Aniekeme, hello. Aniekeme, let me bring this to you. There are those who, the expectations that people would social distance. Some say those expectations are unrealistic? Because for a place, for instance, like Lagos, where you have even structures in the banks and all of that, people still don't social distance. So expecting social distance at a place like an election area, Edo State, for instance, is really being unrealistic. Do you agree?
Yeah, it may be unrealistic because, like the professor had said, our risk communication has not been optimal. And in addition to the risk communication, we've not really done much in terms of community engagement and social mobilization. Because these activities have to be intensified so that the people know that they're doing this for their own good. Because right now, people just see these strategies as strategies. They don't see it as things or activities that would help them to stay alive. Because you tell someone to stay 2 meters away from each other, the person does not really appreciate why you're telling him to do that. So the person feels you are maybe trying to punish him and all that. So we really need to intensify our risk communication activities, community engagement, and social mobilization. By the time we do this, you see that things will change. And apart from that, most Nigerians don't even believe in COVID-19. So by the time you now tell them that you have to do this to prevent what they don't even believe in, it becomes very, very difficult. So moving forward, we really, really need as a nation to intensify our risk communication activities. The Nigerian Centers for Disease Control has really tried. A lot more needs to be done. The community leaders have to be engaged. I can remember when we were trying to eradicate poliomyelitis, we got traditional leaders to serve as, mentors and all that, so that people can look up to them. So for COVID-19, I think we need to get leaders like that, opinion leaders, religious leaders, who can come out, speak to the people, wear their face mask, tell them why they need to do this. I think by the time we do this, most things will, fall in line, so that at different public places, people now understand why they have to use their face mask, why they have to wash their hands, why they have to, follow social distancing procedures and all that. So I think that's what we need to do.
Dr. Shokefun, are you surprised at the numbers that we have in Nigeria? Because initially, the suggestion was that, wow, when this thing gets to Nigeria, people are just going to be dropping dead on the streets. But the figures seem pretty low compared to places like the United States, places like India, places like Israel.
Well, there are several sides to that. Are we testing enough? The penetration of testing is maybe too little. Yes. May just be too little for us to discover so much. That's one side to it. But I also figure that there's a genetic side to it. We seem to be a bit more immune to the virus because of our previous exposures to several other viruses that may have given us some innate immunity to the virus. Our environments are hardly ever clean. Water is hardly ever pure. Air is polluted and all that. So some element of innate immunity across generations may be helping us out. But it is not also safe to assume. That's the reason why scientific research is important, to check the immune cascade of the average Nigerian, because the figures are actually very, very low. The casualties are also very low compared with places like India and all that. So the research side of it is also very, very important.
Professor Saidi, there has been a suggestion that this virus might actually be with us forever, like malaria and other things. So how are we going to be able to cope with it if indeed it stays with us? Because right now, which seems to be the peak of it, we are not prepared to social distance and wear masks and do the things that NCDC, for instance, says that we should to protect ourselves.
Well, I like to thank the previous speaker again for hitting the nail on the head, as to the reasons why we think we are having less cases. Apart from the fact that we are not testing enough, we are not, reporting enough. The problem is, if you look at our data, you will see that which the government is basing its policy on and pronouncing flattening of the curve. You see that there is a huge gap and a huge, misrepresentation. The day we had 79, which is 13th of September, only 8 states out of 36 states reported. Of course, the number reported will be less. The day we had 90, which is 15th of September, we had only 13 states reporting out of 36. So you can see the danger. The reporting, this is not complete. States are not either testing or not adequately reporting. In this situation of pandemic, even 0 is a report. So we don't want to see that there is a state that is not reporting. All the 36 states plus the FCT should be reporting. Then second part of the question is the issue of the nature of the virus, whether it is going to be with us now forever, like influenza viruses, like malaria, hepatitis viruses. Definitely, that is the story, unfortunately. Even though the virus is mutating, we have many research centers in the world that are tracking the behavior of this virus. And the danger is that it's mutating less slower, but for sure and completely than other viruses. Like the influenza virus, it mutates, and within 2 weeks, 2 years, you can see that the one that caused outbreak last 2 years will, mutate to a completely different type, but having the same type of general qualities. But in the case of COVID, coronavirus, it is a very interesting evolution, and that the virus is evolving in a manner that if you are not careful, we might end up with a more virulent type that can adapt to the African population and cause even worse, pandemic. But if you are lucky, it can mutate to a less infectious type, and then we end up, having some natural immunity to it. But in this case, we are not sure it can go either side. So the best option for us is we either, use these simple things, these masks that we are seeing, and follow the social distancing recommendation, etc. Or we pray to God that when the vaccine comes, we might be able to access that vaccine and then protect our people. If not, if the virus, continues to circulate among our population and is mutating for surely and solidly, we might end up with a disaster situation, and this is what we should definitely do to avoid. And this is what many countries in the African continent are waiting. They say the Lord protects His own, but if you don't protect yourself, you don't rise to do what you are supposed to do, you can see that we're digging our own grave. What was reported from Benin, I must congratulate Channels for that wonderful public health communication. That's a very positive public health communication from Benin, from your reporter. And it shows that Nigerians, are not, listening. And our duty here is to appeal to Nigerians not to joke with this virus. This is a deadly one.
Dr. Wa, let's look at this matter of the virus itself. Maybe we should just step back a bit. Yes, there are not many cases in Nigeria, either from immunity or from not testing enough. Fortunately, even the cases that have been reported, the level of fatality is still commendable and good that we're not having too many deaths as well. But let's look again at what needs to be done. From the home level, let's go back again to the primary school and begin to re-educate, because apparently from the conversations we've had from the contributions by the two other guests, this virus is still in the air, it's still around. So let's start again. What do individuals, families need to do?
Okay, thank you. I think the first is that every Nigerian has to accept the fact that we have a problem on our hands, and we have a pandemic, that is killing people across the world, and that pandemic is due to COVID-19. And the modality of spread is through droplets. When a person has the infection, the person coughs, the person speaks, the person sneezes. Those droplets could fall on surfaces, or it could even pass from one person to the other through direct inhalation. So our people have to appreciate this fact. Then apart from that, we have to know that the strategies that have been, outlined are geared towards reducing the rate of spread or the rate of contracting these droplets. That's why it advocated that we should maintain social distances, of 2 meters, because the droplets cannot travel more than 2 meters. So if you maintain that social distance of 2 meters and the person that has the infection is close to you, they are not likely going to, contract it if the person sneezes or coughs or even speaks. Then apart from that, we have been told that we should use a face mask. You use the face mask so that even if by whatever reasons you don't maintain that social distance, you get close to the person, the rate of you inhaling the droplets will be reduced because the face mask serves as a barrier. Then we all know that these droplets are heavy particles that settle on surfaces. So people are encouraged to wash their hands as frequently as possible with running water. And these are simple basic strategies that can really help. Then apart from that, people have been encouraged to go to the health facilities when they are sick. In Nigeria, most people don't go to the health facilities. That's why we have a lot of underreporting in the country. And the underreporting has always been a problem with our data collection processes. Most people don't like reporting. They don't go to the hospital, So it's still happening even with the COVID-19. So people are ill. They have respiratory illnesses. They go to traditional. So we never get to know. And some of them even die in the process. And it's not reported because they were not tested. So you couldn't say it was due to COVID-19. So people are also encouraged to go to the hospital. Because once you have been tested and it's COVID-19, you can now be either isolated, then your contacts can be quarantined. Then from there, the contact tracing, the contact identification, the tracing, the follow-up, and all those processes take place. So by the time all these are put together, we'll be able to control the rate of spread of COVID-19. I'm talking about herd immunity, like Prof. highlighted earlier. Until we have herd immunity, COVID-19 has just come to stay, and we just have to follow these protocols. Because you need about 60% of the population to be immune to these infectious disease for others to be protected. Because assuming you have 80% herd immunity, that means that that's about 4/5, which means that if 5 persons get in contact with a confirmed case of COVID-19, 4 are not likely going to have the infection because they have immunity and they will not likely spread the infection to other people. So until we have that level of herd immunity, which can be achieved when there is a vaccine, and we all know that the processes are going on, we may not have a vaccine till maybe next year and all that, we need to imbibe these basic protocols of social distancing, use of the face mask, hand washing, and other guidelines have been issued by NCDC, by World Health Organization, and so many guidelines have been issued for washing places, for schools, and all that. We don't need to imbibe all this, because like people say, this is the new normal. We have to appreciate the fact that things have really changed, and we don't need to come to the realization of this new situation we found ourselves in the country.
Thank you, Dr. Well, we'll take a moment, and when we'll come back, we'll ask Dr. Shokefun what is the way forward, next step, line of action for everyone as we move forward. Do stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We still have our guest here, Professor Abdul Salami Nasidi is in our Abuja studio. We have Olushola Shokefun, a geneticist here in Lagos, and Anekeme Uwa, an epidemiologist, joined us from Abuja. Uyo
Yes.
Hello.
I have a question for Dr. Shokefun here. From Monday, schools will start reopening. We have heard the Ministry of Education, we have heard school proprietors speak about how it's going to be in shifts and all that. But let's look at the public schools. A lot of them don't have running water. Even if they have 10 shifts, it wouldn't make any difference. So how do you envisage us being able to manage these children coming back to school? And don't forget, many of these public schools are also overcrowded to start with.
Without sounding like a prophet of doom, I foresee some element of trouble when they resume. Most schools don't have running water, which is an essential part of the protocol. Being able to wash your hands with soap regularly and then doing the sanitizing. Can you imagine that even up until now, Nigerians are importing sanitizers? Sanitizers, 4 components that can be done at your backyard by mixing these 4 components. But currently, you go to the ports, you find that Nigerians are still importing sanitizers. Nigerians are still importing face masks.
When you say who are those Nigerians importing?
Businessmen who are making quick money out of the scenario. I was at the airport 2 days back, and I found that a lot of these things were going out. Face masks, sanitizers, and all that.
We're coming in.
We're coming in, sorry. Which ideally things that you should task the universities to do. Things that the industry should do as social services. Things like the big churches, Redeem, MFM should have.
But they are doing
micro factories.
They are doing.
They are not doing enough.
But are they being patronized?
Cross River State has a factory that's churning out how many millions per day?
So the question, are they being patronized?
Well,
maybe it's not enough for the entire country.
It's not enough. I mean, because
Shouldn't
typically...
the government say something about this?
Well, knowing what to do is one thing. Doing it is another. These are 2 different things. You may know what to do. You may not do it. I think people in government, they should know what to do, but the ability to be able to do it is another side of it. For instance, as we speak, no serological test is on in the whole of the country. To find out serological test.
Okay.
A lot of persons are infected, but they are asymptomatic. But they carry the potentials to pass on this infection to other people. So herd immunity, let's check how well we are heading towards it. It's still very far away, but nothing is going on serologically as I speak with you. Even in the eye of the storm, which is Lagos State. And I would suppose that by now, serological tests should have been taking place.
But in all of these conversations, there are scientists in all these teams that understand what a serological test is.
Yes.
So are they proposing it and nobody's listening?
Well, informally, I spoke with people at the National Center for Disease Control informally. There are plans to do it, but it's coming a bit too late. In Spain, for instance, it's concluded, and they have an idea of the patterns of the disease. And then it is used, the figures are also used in planning. We've had this since March. This is September, several months afterwards. So there's a big lacuna here and there, which typically we should, as Nigerians, as parents, as government, as individuals, as proprietors and all that, we should fill this lacuna.
Let me take this, Prof. This thing that there's no serological test going on across the country as it should be brings to mind a question. How much of research around this disease, how much of research is going on in our institutions? How much of research is going on in your institution, for instance?
I must say that we have advanced, and at least the experience of past outbreaks, the pandemic flu, the Ebola outbreak, the Lassa outbreaks has strengthened to some extent our laboratories. And I'm proud to announce that many solid laboratories are conducting world-class research activities on the COVID-19 and coronavirus. And a great example of it is the Redeemers genetic lab in the southwest Nigeria, which has just been recognized as one of the leading laboratories in Africa. I think at least 4 out of the labs in Africa, and among the topmost labs doing research on this virus in the world. That's a feat. And you have the NIMR at Yaba. They are doing very well too. They have also gone to extract RNA. So a lot of work is doing, but that's not the topic for today. I think the topic for today is whether we are testing enough, whether our data are accurate or not, and whether we should be doing serology or not serology, and so on and so forth. So the key is to do the right thing. Doing the right thing is reporting accurately, testing more. I'll give an example. The WHO just announced that countries should have minimum of tests they should conduct in a day that will now give them what the accurate situation of their outbreak is. For instance, for Nigeria, we're supposed to be testing 47,000 samples a day, to be able to know exactly whether we are flattening or dipping the curve or not. But as I'm talking to you now, we are testing just between 2,000 to 4,000 a day. So, the data that we're having cannot be accurate, should not be used, to actually take any decision or to pronounce whether we are flattening or dipping the outbreak. On the issue of serology, it's just the specificity of the test systems. I'm also proud to announce that our National Laboratory Council are doing very well to screen, all these serology tests that are coming to make sure that, we get the right one. Because if you use the wrong one too, you will have false negative, false positive, and you can create another panic. So the moment we now get the right serology test, I'm sure we shall embark on mass testing to see, at least test the antibody of Nigerians, if not even to confirm how many are infected, we can confirm how many were exposed. So, to round my talk, that our testing capacity, even though we are increasing the laboratories, but, number of samples being tested or persons being tested is not yet representative. We need to test minimum of 47 to 50,000 in a day for us to be able to know what to do, for us to be able to know the real situation, and predict, whether we are out of the wood or not. So except we reach that target, we might just be, dreaming, thinking that we have controlled this disease, we have flattened it, or we are dipping it. So this is what I think, should be, taken into consideration by the government before pronouncements are made. Thank you.
Professor Saidi, yes, there was a time the PTF said a number of people are not going to the research centers, even though the test centers have opened and they're increasing in number, and even the research institutions are expanding and all of that people are not going there. Then we've had complaints, or we've had people send us messages that they go there and they are asked to pay for one thing or the other, or they are told go here, but the processes are not even encouraging enough for them to want to continue to come back or to even stay to be tested. So what should be done to encourage people to voluntarily go to be tested?
You are absolutely right. I experienced it myself, where we are supposed to test a number of people, and we went there. So to my utmost surprise, I was the only one who came for the testing. Others did not appear. But by the time we met some of them later, so they were afraid or they didn't know this, And then secondly, you are absolutely right. The testing sample collection centers and even some testing laboratories, unfortunately, some elements of corruption has, evolved. And I think we are requesting the PTF to please look at this, asking people to pay some money, or requesting that they could give them results, and often than not, some are already issuing results that are not accurate. So these are very dangerous developments that might lead to but I can assure you that the NCDC accredited laboratories are not involved. Most of them are doing very well, and they are really coming up with the results. But the problem now is the states are not either testing enough, or they are not sharing that information with the NCDC accurately. So the data that will come as a national data will be dependent on that type of situation, whereby you have testing outlets, and they don't have enough people to test, and if they are not testing, they are not reporting. But in a pandemic situation, as I said, even zero is something that is very important. It's a figure. So every state must report. Every testing center must be reporting through their states and to the NCDC. If not, we shall be swimming in a deadly sea, thinking that the problem is over, and then before you know where you are, so many countries are now already experiencing a second wave. In fact, I was shocked to hear yesterday that some countries are even experiencing third wave already, countries like Iran. So I pray that we don't get to that stage where the second wave will hit us, and take us by surprise, and the outcome will be very devastating. So, it is very important. For instance, when we are saying we are flattening the curve, the two examples I gave, 79 cases per day, 90 cases per day. And today, we have 221 cases per day. So it's not really, it's a dipping and rising, how will I say, flaring up, dipping and flaring up, dipping and flaring up. The data is not stable. The testing centers are not fully occupied. The last point is that in a situation like this, what will help us is taking this testing into the people. We go right into the community and start, taking samples, expand our sample collection sites, and start testing. With that type of activity in India, they moved from 1 million cases, in the last maybe 6 months to almost 5 million within another 2-3 weeks. So the more you expand your ability to test, especially test in the community, the more you'll be seeing the cases. So we don't know yet what is happening in Nigeria. The cases are not accurate. We should be very, very careful. We should take the tests to the community. We should expand, the testing collection, sample collection centers, and engage the community. So I think that is how to carry out the epidemiological activity that will tell us exactly where we are.
Okay. Dr. Odaguwa, we must start winding down now. I would like your comment on something I heard a doctor say on CNN, I think 2 days ago, when he said, they were talking about the vaccine, and he said, we have a vaccine now. It is called wear a mask. I'd like your comments about that.
Yeah, I actually watched that, and I think it's very instructive for us to know that even though different pharmaceutical companies across the world are working towards developing this magic bullet, everybody wants a vaccine, everybody wants it. But till then, we have a vaccine right now, and that is wearing a mask. It's here with us. A vaccine is futuristic. It could take up to a year before it gets to even this part of the world. So for now, the best way we can protect ourselves is to continue the risk communication, the community engagement and social mobilization. So I don't appreciate why they need to wear a mask. When the outbreak started, many people could not afford the medical face mask. We got to the point that people were encouraged to use clothing materials and all that. All these were meant to provide a barrier so you don't just inhale these droplets and come down with, the virus. So for now, we will say that vaccine is very good, and we need to all wear a mask to protect ourselves and other people that are close to us. Okay, Dr. Shokefun, your closing statements, please, the way forward.
Well, the rule is that we must follow the protocol. We must follow the protocol. We must not assume that because the figures are seemingly low, we are in safe waters. It is very dangerous to assume that. So keeping the protocols and following them religiously is a sine qua non to our keeping safe. Professor,
your final word, please.
My final word, I just found it from Benin, and it says, stay away from coronavirus. Life has no duplicate. I think this is from INEC. I believe the National Orientation Agency will pick this. INEC was saying stay away from violence. Life has no duplicate. And we want to tell Nigeria that please don't take these things for granted. Stay away from coronavirus. Life has no duplicate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Abdul Salam Saidi, Provost, College of Health Sciences, University of Africa, Bayelsa, who joined us from our studios in Abuja. And we also had Dr. Anyekeme Uwa, an epidemiologist who joined us from Uyo via Skype, and Dr. Olushola Shokefun, a geneticist who was with us in our studio in Lagos. Thank you all very much for coming to share your insights with us this morning. Sunrise will be right back in just a moment with another interesting conversation. Do stay with us.